If you, like me, last spent significant time playing video games when video games looked like this, it can be disconcerting, even disorienting, to know that video games now look like this. Which is to say, it is really hard to tell that they are not movies. Ultimately, the basic principles are the same in terms of video games then and video games now. Most of them are fighting and shooting games, and for most of them, if you are not really good at controlling your thumbs, you're probably not going to be a world champion at the game. But the increasing over-the-top visual realism of modern video games is also matched by an effort on the part of video game makers to make the wartime combat featured in so many of the most popular games really authentic as combat. So this game you're looking at here is called Medal of Honor Warfighter. It was so authentic that when the game came out a couple of weeks ago, 7 Navy SEALs were officially reprimanded for giving classified information about Navy SEAL stuff to the makers of this game, who presumably used it to make it as authentic as possible. In a new combat realism game that came out today, the makers were advised by a guy named Oliver North. Remember him? The disgraced Marine colonel indicted for 16 felonies in the Reagan-era Iran-Contra scandal. He then went on to become a Fox News personality and a conservative movement hero. Oliver North not only consulted on this new game, Call of Duty, that comes out today, he appears as a character in the game. Although look at his hips. In real life, I don't think his hips swing like a hula dancer the way his do in this game. When the character, actually, I don't know, I've never seen him walk. When the character Oliver North talks in Call of Duty Black Ops 2, this game that came out today, it is actually Oliver North's real voice. But here's the thing about this game that came out today and today's news. And it's a thing that I'm guessing nobody saw coming before it happened. The game comes out today. It is set 13 years in the future. It's set in the year 2025. And although the game is supposed to be fiction, the cameo from freaking Oliver North is not the only way they are trying to make this thing seem connected to real people and the real world. There's also an important scene in the game that takes place on a U.S. aircraft carrier, and that aircraft carrier is named the USS Barack Obama. And the U.S. Defense Secretary meeting on the flight deck with the commander of the U.S. aircraft carrier Obama is the American Defense Secretary, who in the game is named David Petraeus. Before this week, it probably was not a bad bet in video game land that in 13 years, a then 73-year-old David Petraeus might really be Defense Secretary. But now, today, that is a rather bad bet. And it means that this video game someday in the future will be unearthed with the same glee and disbelief that accompanied the discovery of the old dating game footage of a very young future Michigan governor, Jennifer Granholm. President Obama was sworn into office as president at the end of January 2009. Just over 100 days after that, less than 4 months after he was sworn in, the new president did something absolutely remarkable, something that had not been done in more than 50 years. The new president fired the man in charge of the war.
President Obama has said that the war in Afghanistan is one the U.S. must win. And senior officials here at the Pentagon have decided it will take new military leadership to do it.
Defense Secretary Robert Gates met McKiernan in Afghanistan last week to break the bad news, but waited until today to announce it.
I have asked for the resignation of General David McKiernan.
Defense Secretary Robert Gates and President Obama relieving General David McKiernan of command. And when they did that, when they relieved him of command as the lead American commander for the war in Afghanistan, that was the first time since President Truman fired General Douglas MacArthur during the Korean War that an American president had relieved a 4-star U.S. commanding general in the middle of the war he was leading. When President Obama did that, it was the first time in 58 years that anything like that had happened in this country. And then he did it again. After he fired the man who was running the war when he took office, General McKiernan, the replacement general who President Obama sent to lead the war thereafter was this guy, General Stanley McChrystal. There was almost as much of a media cult around General McChrystal as there was around David Petraeus. But a year after General McChrystal took command of the Afghanistan war, he too was fired by President Obama. He was fired for, in effect, insubordination, after a magazine article portrayed General McChrystal and his top aides drinking their way across Europe and talking smack about civilian leadership in Washington. Michael Hastings' story about General McChrystal was told first in Rolling Stone magazine, and then it was told to epic effect in his book-length account of the incident, which is called The Operators. So after President Obama's first commander of the Afghanistan war was fired, after his second commander was fired, President Obama turned to the most high-profile military leader in the country, General David Petraeus, to become his third Afghanistan war commanding general. That tenure in Afghanistan lasted a year as the president surged tens of thousands of more Americans into that country, ultimately tripling the number of troops who had been there when he first took office. That year at the front ended for General Petraeus when he came back to Washington to become head of the CIA, a job from which he unexpectedly and suddenly resigned last week, saying he had been having an extramarital affair. Meanwhile, yet another confirmation hearing is due this week for yet another new commander of the war in Afghanistan. Marine General Joe Dunford is due to take over the reins in that war from the outgoing commander, John Allen. John Allen is the man who took over from General Petraeus. But while General Allen is still now running the war over there, he too has been caught up in the Petraeus affair scandal. General Allen's confirmation hearings for his next big job, NATO's Supreme Allied Commander, those hearings are now on hold, while the matter of General Allen's own personal relationship with one of the women involved in the Petraeus affair, harassing emails, FBI investigation thing, can be sorted out. General Allen is in Washington for his own now postponed confirmation hearings for his next job and for his own now canceled role in the confirmation hearings for his successor to lead the Afghanistan war. In Washington, he is denying any suggestion that he had any sort of inappropriate relationship with anyone. And for now, it seems that the Defense Department and the White House are standing by him while the investigation continues. And while he submits his plans to the president now for which Americans are going to remain in Afghanistan after the official U.S. troop withdrawal from that war, which is not this year and is not next year, but doesn't happen anytime during the following year until the very end of the year after that. He has submitted plans already for American troop presence in Afghanistan starting in the year 2015. And after President Obama signs off on that post-2015 plan in the next couple of weeks, the White House is due to start their plans for how many Americans have to stay in the war this year, 2012, and next year, 2013, and the year after that, 2014. Those recommendations will be coming from General Allen, who, if you're keeping track now, is the 10th U.S. general to lead the U.S. war in Afghanistan. Before this latest hullabaloo, he was due to be replaced this week by our 11th commanding general for this same war, which is now in its 12th year, with planning well underway for year 13 and year 14, and then something different that they won't call a war, but that will still have Americans there starting in year 15 and going on indefinitely. And for the moment, General John Allen, successor to the disgraced Petraeus, successor to the disgraced McChrystal, successor to the fired McKiernan, John Allen today remains in command of the U.S. war in Afghanistan, where 68,000 Americans are at this very hour risking their necks for a country that has not in a decade paid as much attention to that war there as it is now paying to the sexual misconduct and disgrace of one of the many, 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 many men who have led it.